ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. So before we begin the meditation session, we will begin with peace chants, and then there will be a small guided meditation. What it means to be spiritually minded. So, meditation is in the context of spiritual life. Otherwise, meditation has no purpose. But before that, I got the whole question which was asked. It was partly read by Gaurav. So, I'll uh, explain the whole question, what it was. It's a very interesting thing because this Akasha idea has come to me recently. The three Akashas. I was really surprised when I saw it in the Gospel. We read the Gospel so many times, great master and all the books, but we need to reread it again and again. Sometimes we miss these great things. We think Thakur has just mentioned these three, must have heard from someone. See, these three concepts of Mahakasha, Chittakasha, and Chidakasha, they are very important to understand the idea of space. Idea of space is so important because, as you all know, we all live in space and time. If there is no space, there is no time. Of course, Einstein and others have proved this. Because within space, when we travel from one point to another point, there is some time that has elapsed. So they say time, space, and causation. So causation is because of that. What has happened in the past gives rise to what will happen now. So whatever you have done in the past will have its effect now. The whole karma theory is based on time, space, and causation. So this is accepted by Western philosophy, Indian philosophy. So this space becomes very important. Time we understand, Kala, based on which the whole philosophy of Shiva and Shakti are explained. Kala and Mahakala, which is Shiva, and Kali, Mahakali, one who controls Kali. So these are not ordinary imaginations of a poet, just describe Kali as a particular goddess. Kali means one who controls Kala. Mahakala means one who is beyond time, space, and causation. He is Shiva. He is sleeping. On his chest is Mahakali dancing. It appears ridiculous for many people, but the idea is timelessness is the substratum on which time, space, and causation place the whole drama. That is the idea of the whole dance of Shiva, Nataraja, as Nataraja, time, space, and causation. So, all our symbology and all this has tremendous meaning. And Sri Krishna just casually, jokingly, in fact, he was joking about Krishna Kishore's obsession with Akasha, space. We would have simply dismissed it that Sri Krishna was making fun. So, but Sri Krishna immediately says there are three. Do you know there are three spaces? Now, how many of us even think, oh, space is space, finished? We don't even bother about three spaces. And Thakur tells us. So, there is a deep significance because when we are struggling to become spiritual, we are in Mahakasha most of the time. As one of the questions was asked here, how do we go from workday, workplace to our meditative life, Chittakasha, and then Chidakasha, deep meditation? How do we go from one space to another? We are always going. So, in the same context, this question was asked, and it's an important question because Mother, you see, the question was, if it was read, I got the full question, that's why I can answer now. The question is when Sri Krishna came and appeared before Swami Vivekananda, obviously he was in Mahakasha, as all of us are. He was seeing, and suddenly he sees on the top of the ocean. I think you all know the incident. Why he went to America, why he went to the West. It is in this context this question was asked. He went to the west because he saw Sri Krishna very clearly, not a hallucination. He saw Sri Krishna is walking, pointing towards the west. That means you go there. But nothing was spoken. It is just a vision where he is just pointing out. So now the question was it in Mahakasha? It's a very interesting question because if it is in Mahakasha, you would have seen him in physically, he would have seen him. Most of the visions. Now, this applies to all the visions of Sri Krishna or any other person. If it is a genuine vision, if it is not a hallucination, if it is a hallucination, it is in Chittakasha or even lower Mahakasha because our brains are deranged and we see things. The hallucination should not be confused with visions. Here, these type of visions we don't believe, or people who have not attained to the Chidakasha or are not in that plane. I'm not saying Swami Vivekananda did not attain to that state. He saw a vision. If his mind was in that plane, one tuned with Chidakasha, then definitely I think he would have been convinced. Oh, Sri Krishna said I have to go. But he knew that I need to get confirmation of Holy Mother. The second part of the question was, why did he then write to Holy Mother, who was obviously in the Mahakasha? For us, she was living in the Mahakasha. This is to be understood very clearly. He did not ask Brahmananda or any other person. He asked only Holy Mother because he knew that Holy Mother was the only person after Sri Ramakrishna who could go from one plane to another because she was Shakti herself. She could go from Mahakasha, go to Chittakasha, go to Chidakasha and give answers from there. That is why their answers are so precise. That's why Swami Vivekananda said, even I can't see the future, but if Sri Krishna says something, I take his word for it because his answers come from a plane beyond Chidakasha, even beyond Chidakasha. But because he could, of course, if he goes into meditation, Swamiji would have also intuitively understood it. But he was wondering, he was just having a slight doubt. So he said, if Holy Mother is alive and he knew the significance of Shakti, he says, none of you have understood the power of Shakti, which is Holy Mother. You think she is just a wife of Sri Ramakrishna. No, she has come to fulfill his mission in a much powerful way, which Sri Ramakrishna himself told, I have done very little, you have to do much more. In that context, if you see, even though he was convinced Sri Ramakrishna's vision was a genuine vision, it has come definitely when Sri Ramakrishna says, if he had said it verbally, perhaps coming down to this plane, there would have been no place for any doubt. But since he was hesitating, maybe to show to the world, he said, let me get confirmation. So the confirmation, of course, came in the Mahakasha because he waited for the letter. Because you see, he waited. They had booked the ticket also. He said, no, please cancel the ticket. I'll not go. And naturally, post it goes to Jairam Bhatti. He sends a letter and then somebody reads out to Holy Mother. Then Holy Mother answers. And definitely Holy Mother, he knew, would answer from the same plane as Sri Ramakrishna, beyond Chidakash. So her confirmation means final. So that is the question. So that is how this question was asked, because these things we do not understand how their minds work. What Akasha means to Thakur, what Akasha means to Ma, what Akasha means to other disciples, and what Akasha means to us. We are still struggling at the Mahakasha level. If we are very lucky, if we do our sincere spiritual practices, maybe we can go to Chitta Akasha level. But how many of us can say, if somebody tells us, do this, do we have 100% faith? Somebody was asking just now whether Shraddha, Rakhal was asking, Sharanagati, does it come if there is Shraddha? Yes, obviously. If 100% Shraddha is there in the Ishta, then you have Sharanagati. Total, whatever happens by the grace of the Lord, whom I believe. If I have 100% Shraddha, that means we are 100% sure that the messages that come to us are coming from Chittakash. That is why they say when you pray deeply, many times you will find Holy Mother's today the reading was done. He says you go and pray in a corner and then wait for the right answer. Sometimes it may not be clear. You may not have Shraddha. Oh, is it my imagination? If it happens to Vivekananda, that is it my imagination that I should go to the West? If I want to go to the West, as Thakur says, is it a real vision? From which Akasha, which plane? Obviously, he is not in Mahakasha. He is neither in Chittakasha. It is not his mental imagination. He is seeing. So that has to be Chidakasha, obviously. But he knew that if there was one person in this whole world, means after Thakur's passing away, who could infallibly give the right verdict. So, but how can she convey? Either he has to go to that Chidakasha level or Chittakasha, then transcend it and then get a vision of perhaps Holy Mother. That would have been possible. But he chose a simple way. He just wrote a letter. He was prepared to wait. And he waited. And Mother dictated to whoever wrote. She could not write herself. So she wrote a letter and then she said, now send it to Naren. As soon as he got the letter, he told Allah Singha, now prepare for the journey. So you imagine, we need Mahakasha, as the question was asked. So this question answers two or three questions which were asked by others here. That when they do from, we can be certain because it has come from a space which is beyond the Chidakasha, or it is a result of the true consciousness with which they had become one. They were known as either Prakriti Leena Purushas, or that is one of the description. They have become one with that Purusha. Though Prakriti is influencing them, it is within Prakriti only. When they see the vision, when Swamiji saw the vision, it was by his own eyes. It was not when he closed his eyes and he dreamt or he imagined. He saw literal. See, there's a difference between vision and imagination. He saw the vision, Thakur is pointing out very clearly, go there, go there. And then he has a feeling whether it, of course, he would not have, we are discussing it, whether it was from Chittakasha or Chidakasha, or is it just a figment of imagination? Maybe my strong imagination, he might have thought. Maybe the dream or some daydreaming is coming, and if I go to America just by, go to the West, as my disciples have planned, the ticket he had cancelled. In fact, he cancelled the ticket. He said, let me be sure. So the only way he could be sure is to go to the level of Mahakasha, that is, write a letter, which of course went by through space. Physically, it was sent. Physically, it was received, but the answer was not physical. We would have answered physically, okay, you think, you decide whether you want to go or not. We will give all answers based on Mahakasha, practicability of going to the West. What will you do? What will you do? So many things he was uncertain. When he went, he was in fact not sure what he wants to do. So who will take the foolish step of just sitting in a ship and going to America? So naturally, we don't plan in Mahakasha. So when we are not certain of what we do in the gross world, we go to Chittakasha. We do some rational thinking. If I go there, what will the purpose? But even that is an imperfect answer. So you have to rely on somebody who can intuitively give us the answers. So in a way, yes, Swami Vivekananda had the capacity, as he himself said, by Thakur's grace, I have the capacity, but I seldom use it, and it's not always. But he says, my judgment or my faith or belief in Sri Ramakrishna's words are infallible, because they were infallible. If Mother had said something, if Thakur has said something, it has, I know for certain it is not from Mahakasha nor from his figment of his mind. He is telling this from the intuitive level, highest level, from which he can tell you, do this, do that. And he says, till now, whatever Sri Ramakrishna said has come true, 100%. So he said, I sometimes doubt my own capacity to judge people or judge things or plan for the future. But if Sri Ramakrishna has said, he says, I'm very, very fanatical about that. If Sri Ramakrishna has said Raja Maharaj is Rakhal is Raja, he can rule a kingdom. If he says that, that means he can rule and he has to become the president. He didn't even think. Said Thakur has said he has made him the king. So Rakhal Maharaj immediately he gave the name Raja Maharaj because he Thakur said he has the buddhi or a capacity of a king. So if he wants to be the president of the whole order, he has to be like a Raja. So he immediately gave him Raja Maharaj and made him the first president of the order just because Thakur said this. If he had used his own imagination, he would have thought who is capable, who is not capable. Then we use our own limited intellect, own mind. So that is the idea behind these three uh, levels. From what levels? So this question which was asked and the two subsequent questions which they asked, they are to be answered from this level. We do our best. We answer all the questions based on Mahakasha, the practical situation, and we think we are very practical. It's good. For us, that is the only way. At the most, we'll go to the Chittakasha level, give it a thought. Some people will not give it a thought, they will just act depending on practical wisdom. Oh, no, no, this has happened, you do this. Then we, even if it is wrong, we don't mind. But Chittakasha means we'll just deliberate, use our buddhi a little bit because our buddhi has been enlightened. Our wisdom has teaches us don't take an immediate decision. See the pros and cons. Go at the chitta kasha level. Let the mind be steady, calm, and peaceful, and then you take a decision. Even that may be wrong, but only if we go to Sri Krishna's level, he could see everything so clearly. He knew what will happen in the future, what Swami Vivekananda will do. So he is not asking him to go by planning like us what he will do, what he should do. He just says, you go, because he knows this is what will happen. Parliament of religions will be arranged for him. He will succeed. Whatever purpose of his life till he entered into Mahasamadhi, that also was decided by Thakur. He knew that when he knows who he is, he will give up this body. That also he knew. So everything was seen from that highest level. So in that way, this question and all the other questions should be understood. So now we will start the session on meditation. We begin with a prayer. I'll just read this prayer. Normally in the West, this is a universal prayer, which is the meaning of all the mantras. It is something similar to Gayatri, but it is a Rigvedic prayer. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya. O Lord, the meaning is, from the phenomenal world of unreality, that is temporary nature of Prakriti, make me go towards the reality of the eternal self. Make me go from Prakriti to Purusha, from the changing to the unchanging. Asatoma Satgamaya, towards Sat or Satchitananda. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Tamasa means darkness. From the darkness of ignorance or avidya, make me or lead me towards the light, that is spiritual knowledge. So, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Jyoti means spiritual light. Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya. From the world of change or mortality, world of mortality means that which is changing, that which is born, maintains itself and dies. So this is the world of mortals. Mrityu, from Mrityu, let me go to Amrutam, means where there is no death. From the world of mortality, of material attachment, make me go or lead me towards the world of immortality, of Shuddha Chaitanya or self-realization. So now we will begin our guided meditation. I'm not reading the Sanskrit, though it is from the Upanishad. So it will take more time. So I'll just read these verses and we'll silently meditate on the meaning of that. This is from Kathopanishad. I can chant this, but I'll explain the meaning. ॐ पराञ्चिखानि व्यतृणत्स्वयम्भू तस्मात् परां पश्यति नान्तरात्मन् आवृत्तचक्षु अमृतत्वमिच्छन् कश्चिद् धीर अन्तरात्मानमैक्षत् आवृत्तचक्षु अमृतत्वमिच्छन्. The self-existent one. Swayambhu means the self-existent one, who is pure consciousness within, has so created the living beings that their senses, the gross senses, look outward. Unfortunately, they do not see inward or the spiritual self within. But rare is the wise person who, Amrutatvam Icchan, who desirous of immortality, looks inward, realizes the spiritual self, and becomes free forever. So the Upanishad says that the way to immortality, if we want it, if we want to reach immortality, Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya, if we want to reach that goal, then the only approach is to turn our direction inwards, which is the goal of meditation. To be ridden by the body-mind idea, that is the outward tendency, literally kills us. That is the word Upanishad uses here. Paranchikhani vyatrunat swayambhu. It is very strange, but the self-existent Lord, Swayambhu, inside, he has literally killed us by making us go outward. That's why he says to be devoted to the spirit, to be animated and motivated by the spirit consciousness is real life, spiritual life. So Saint Paul, I'm reminded, will just meditate on this wonderful idea of Saint Paul. He's of course echoing Jesus's message that to be realize oneself as the spirit is the only goal of life, not be ridden with the body-mind idea. So to be, they use the word carnal. Carnally means that which focuses your mind, on the body and the mind. To be carnally minded is death. To be spiritually minded is life and peace. This is from the Romans 8:6. This is Saint Paul, who was an apostle of Jesus Christ. So that's the reason why all these great saints, when they start living the life of spirit, of course they are the highest, they live the highest ideal. We cannot come anywhere close to them, but they would not compromise. So to be carnally minded is as good as death for them. Whereas for us, death means just losing our body. If that was the idea of death, then Jesus would not have bothered, I mean, uh, allowed himself to be crucified, because he was just laughing and forgiving others when he was crucified. Because to be carnally minded, he knew was as good as death. So, what's the purpose of holding on to this transient body and mind? So, since he had touched the spirit, he was living in spirit, and he expected all his followers to live in spirit. He said to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Now, the next verse is from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. This is the famous chant which Swamiji chanted in his paper on Hinduism. शृण्वन्तु विश्वे अमृतस्य पुत्राः आये धामानि दिव्यानि तस्सुः वेदाहमेतं पुरुषं महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसः परस्तात्. Hear me, O children of immortal bliss, those who dwell in this universe, those that dwell in the worlds beyond. Hear me. I have realized that Supreme Being, the self effulgent one, beyond all darkness, resplendent like the golden sun. By knowing Him alone, one goes beyond death. There is no other way out of death. So that is why we shall meditate on our own Ishta, trying to imagine that He is in our heart, full of light. This idea of truth as light is there in every scripture. So we'll try to meditate on our own Ishtas, whichever Ishta we believe in, as the central core of our being in the heart, with resplendent form. It's not just a form which we see in photographs or images. He is of the nature of light. So let us try to meditate for a minute or so. Now let us see how this meditation on the light will take us from death to immortality. What does it mean? It's very important. Mrityorma amrutam gamaya. It is a verse which we chant. So what does it mean? Because according to the first verse, Paranchikani Vetrunat Swayambhu Tasmat Parang Pashati na Antaratman na Pratyagatman Kaschid Dhira Antaratmanam Avrutta Chakshu Amrutatvam Icchan. So he desires immortality. What do we mean by that? What is desiring immortality mean? Because we forget the spirit, the true spirit which is immortal within, and focus our mind outside, because that is how the God has created us and literally killed us. That's why St. Paul says to be carnal is to be dead, or it's as good as death. So, why are we mortal? Because when we look outward, if we can't focus our mind inward in the immortal spirit, we become subject to hunger, thirst, growth, decay, birth, death, and from that Even thinking of that gives sorrow and misery. But there is only one way, according to Kathopanishad, Antaratmanam Kaschid Dhiraha. Some wise people, they believe that there is a way out of this mortal existence to immortality. Many try, many reach the goal, but most of them, at least they begin their journey. Maybe ultimately they will reach it, but at least one has to begin. Kaschid Dhiraha. Wise, steady persons. So when we withdraw our thoughts, the only way we can reach the immortal self within is to withdraw our thoughts, that is, go into our Chittakasha, and gather all our scattered feelings. Scattered because that is how we are designed. The senses are scattering it. Eyes are showing something, ears are showing something. So only when we meditate, we are in touch with the real self. Temporarily, we say we have done enough of this going outside. Now, when I meditate, at least let me go in and see what is there. When we gather our scattered feelings and ideas and concentrate them on the spirit within as full of light, because that's the only thing we can imagine, then we realize the spiritual self and become immortal. For a steady person who may be still living in his body and using his senses, if he realizes he is always one with the divine spirit, that is what Brother Lawrence means when he says, practice the presence of God. You do your work, everything has to be done. Senses are obviously designed to work, focus our attention outward. But that doesn't mean our awareness should always be outward. So we feel the presence within simultaneously, whether you are cooking, because Brother Lawrence said, every time I did any job, it was a prayer, it was a meditation, because I was feeling the presence of Christ, whether I was cooking, cleaning dishes, all outward work, but the mind was feeling the presence or focusing on the presence of God within. That's what he says. Even though we may wear a body, see, this is important. We are wearing a body. We are not the body. We are wearing a body, even though apparently we have to accept that we undergo birth, growth, decay, death, but still there is something in us, and we have to have firm faith which is deathless, because we have realized the Supreme Spirit, the ideal existence, the immortal Atman. Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya. Let me always carry on that journey, the internal journey, no matter what is the destination in our external journey. The eternal one who is not only within, but according to the next meditation, he is around us, above us, below us. So for Brother Lawrence, if you read that wonderful book, Practice of the Presence of God, he said there was no place, whether I am in the monastery, whether I am in the chapel, whether I am in cooking something, or whether I am just cleaning some dishes. I used to feel that deep within my heart, God was always present. So he says in his letters to some of his disciples, he says, that's the only spiritual practice I did. I always tried to practice the presence of God, not that feel. See, he would have said, I always felt the presence of God, then it would be hypocrisy. He would not feel every time, but he would practice the presence. That means make conscious efforts. That is what meditation achieves. That is what guided meditation is all about. We, through our words, through our thoughts, through our actions, we just try to focus on that divine presence within, which does not change, which alone leads us to immortality. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Jyoti means full of light, which removes all the darkness that is around. And also Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya. So that is the first meditation on to be spiritually minded is real life. Now, the second thoughts from the Rig Veda, this is Gayatri Mantra, which is from the Rig Veda. Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. The meaning is we meditate on the sublime radiance of the effulgent being, the indwelling controller and sustainer of all the worlds. May he inspire our thoughts. Let us meditate on God, the supreme consciousness within, who is the light of all the lights outside. He exists always with us as our innermost self. We visualize Him in the depth of our heart as a being shining with constant effulgence. Another useful meditation is the light within, which is His light, endows the mind with intelligence and the eyes with sight. His light enlivens the body and enables the mouth to speak, the ears to hear, the hands to work, the legs to move. His light shines through each and every function of the mind and senses. When we meditate on such an effulgent and living presence within, we enter into a realm of light where there is no darkness, no confusion, no shadow of death. Our fears and sufferings vanish, our doubts and delusions dissolve in that light, and all our bondages shatter. We attain eternal life, we find ourselves free, illumined, and blissful. Now we have meditated on that inner being as full of light. But where do we meditate on Him? Where do we find Him? As I said, we meditate in the heart. So Kathopanishad says, what is His nature? He is light of lights, no doubt. But what space does He occupy? Since we are used to living in time, space, and causation, meditation helps us to just forget time for the being, for the time being. And we think of a space. As I said, there are three spaces: Mahakasha, the space outside the world that we see, the space in the mind, Chittakasha, and Chidakasha, the space which is full of the light of consciousness. Chit Akasha. So there is a verse in the Kathopanishad which indirectly helps us to find this space. Just saying the heart is not enough. He says, He is finer than the fine. Whatever we can imagine, however fine it is, He is still finer than that. He is greater than the great. The self that dwells in the heart of every living being. One who is free from desires, with the senses and mind tranquil. The senses and mind have to be calmed down. Then only we can locate that space. Physically, we may think of the Mahakasha in the heart, but only when you go to the transcend the Chittakasha and go to the Chidakasha, you reach there. So it is true that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere. We just mentioned it. He's above, he's below, he's everywhere. The all-pervading God, as in Islam they say Allah, who is everywhere, hears everything, he listens to everything. There is no place where he is not. In spite of that, the Upanishad says, it is true that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere. He is beyond form, beyond time, and beyond space. That makes him transcendental. But where do you realize him? Is there a location? Yes. He is also manifest within our heart as our innermost self. Right there, in the depth of the heart, his light is constantly shining. It is in the depth of the heart alone that one can know him directly and most intimately. So, how do we visualize? What does that light do? Another Upanishad says, we visualize the light of consciousness within our heart, our innermost self, the eternal changeless spirit that witnesses all the changes of our body and the mind. In our waking state, in our dream state, and in the deep sleep state, it shines with a constant effulgence that never flickers or never gets dim. And we come to the beautiful verse from the Bhagavata. He says, O Lord, who is the supreme yogi, thou art the perfect and primal being. The universe, both manifest and unmanifest, the wise meditator knows as thyself. Thou art the sole master of the body, my life, my mind, and the senses of all other beings as well. Thou art time, Kala, Thou art the all-pervading being, Sarva-Vyapi Brahma, the possessor of all glories, Bhagavan. Bhaga means glories. Bhagavan means one who possesses all the glories. The Lord omnipotent, that is all powerful and changeless. So these are the different meditations. Though they are qualities, it gives a sense of eternity to the form on which we normally meditate. These qualities are superimposed by our mind because we do not know the true nature which he himself has to reveal. And that happens when we transcend the Chidakasha. When he shines in his own glory, we know who really he is. Right now, we just meditate. And all the Upanishads and the verses which we meditate upon are guidelines. They are not experiences. They may be experiences for some of the rishis, but they help us to get the true experience. Now, we'll come to Ananda. Sat is eternal existence. We began with that. Then Chit was what we discussed, the pure consciousness, the light, which is very often described as light. Now, we have to meditate on the third aspect, which is known as Ananda, bliss. So there is a beautiful Upanishad. In fact, Taittiriya Upanishad is all about the manifestation of the God within as absolute bliss, not little joys that we feel, joys and sorrows. It is absolute bliss. So this Upanishad goes to the extent of saying, from bliss all these beings arise. By bliss they live. Into bliss they go and re-enter. This is what the Rishi sees. He doesn't see as anything painful because he has realized the unchanging spirit, the Chaitanya within. So he says, they have come from bliss. They live in bliss. And they will merge into bliss. Verily, Brahman is bliss. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Shiva is of the nature of Chit, pure consciousness, and Ananda. Chit Ananda Rupa Shivoham. I am that bliss, I am that pure consciousness. So when we meditate on this, the consciousness within, which is hidden, slowly awakens. That is the goal of spiritual life. One who experiences once the bliss of Brahman beyond words and thoughts has nothing to fear because there cannot be any fear. He has already become one with that bliss which cannot be disturbed by anything. There is bliss in the heart of each and everything. Bliss is the very essence of the universe. The supreme bliss is pure and transcendental. Because there is no misery, no pain, no fear, no turmoil of the world can disturb it. And this bliss, according to the Mahavakya, is known as Prajnanam Brahma. That Brahman which is Ananda is also pure consciousness. Because that alone will give you unalloyed bliss. So there is a beautiful verse, Madhuvata Ritayate Madhuksharanti Sindavaha. These are meditations. These are realizations of the Rishi who uttered this. But the Vedic rishis, when they saw the wind around them, the beautiful river, flowing river, the waters, the sky, everything appeared to be full of bliss. So Madhuvata Ritayate. He says, think Means it's a kind of meditation when we repeat that verse. The bliss that we see all around is identical with the pure consciousness and awareness within. When you touch that awareness, you see that same awareness outside of you. And what happens? We have to think, at least imagine, till we really realize it, that bliss pervades the atmosphere around us. So, why imagine the world is full of misery? The Rishi says, just imagine, at least during meditation, that bliss pervades the whole atmosphere around us. That the air we breathe is pure, sweet, and full of bliss. So, this in a way, we are imagining that with every breath, we are breathing bliss, breathing purity, everything is so sweet. This may be imagination in the beginning, but meditation is nothing but imagination. When we meditate on these ideas persistently, they become real to us slowly, but it's a long drawn task. Think that our whole being, body, mind, organs, and the senses are permeated by that bliss which is within. Though right now we may feel to the contrary, we may feel body is a problem, mind is a problem, bigger problem. The senses are disturbing us. Turbulence is created in our mind, in our body, in our senses. But still, to negate that, when we sit for meditation, these verses from the Upanishad say that imagine that your body, mind, the organs, and the senses are permeated by that bliss, at least during meditation. Our mind is posed and calm, though it is not, but we have to persistently tell. We experience an ineffable peace and joy arising from us. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, you have no idea of what that bliss is all about. He says, on a minute fraction of that bliss, all the beings live and survive. That means he says, even if a minute fraction of that real bliss is there, then you can survive. At no stage in our life this bliss vanishes. Otherwise, we would not have lived. We would have preferred to die. So, even a minute fraction of that, with the help of that, you can live. So, imagine when you have that full bliss, what will be our condition? Who can exhale or inhale if this bliss did not dwell in the depths of the heart? You see, we talk of pranayama. In fact, pranayama is not a breathing exercise to make you healthy. No doubt it will make one healthy if you rhythmically breathe. But the Upanishad says combine it with the idea that with every breath, because the only thing that we will do till the end of our life is to breathe. So you see what powerful imagery is there. At least for a few moments every day, you just breathe in, breathe bliss. So bliss is within, bliss is outside. So you spread that bliss within and without. That's the idea. That's the least we can do. So it says, who can exhale or inhale? We can't even do that if the bliss did not dwell in the depth of the heart. That is why they say bliss indeed is Brahman. That is Taittiriya Upanishad. And to conclude, I will just explain to you what this Taittiriya Upanishad, which is, there is a chapter in that, which is known as the chapter on Ananda, on bliss. So it takes you gradually, it starts with the concept that imagine you are a young man or a woman in the prime of your youth with all the whole body full of energy, body, very healthy body, very prosperous life, everything is fine, the best possible things in the world. And for such a person, say there is a unit of Ananda, that is the first unit, one unit. Then it gradually takes you 100 times, several times of that Ananda is what you feel Gandharva. There are different, Gandharva is a imaginary state where you have all the joys minus the sorrows associated with the body and mind. So Gandharvas are full of joy. It says 100 times then that human being who is having everything that is worth possessing in this world, a healthy body, the amount of bliss he has, happiness he has, the absence of sorrow that he has because of absolute uh, possession of all the good things of the world. 100 times of that is the bliss that Gandharvas experience because they have the same bliss without minus all the sorrows that we have to endure when we take up a body. Thakur used to very nicely say that, Sri Ramakrishna, that pain, disease, and all these things is the tax that we have to pay when God gives us a body. You can't live in a house without paying tax. So Gandharvas don't have to pay that tax. The tax free. So that Gandharva is 100 times. Then they go to higher and higher beings, and then several multiples of that 100 times they finally come to the conclusion. I mean, the Upanishad says, is the bliss of Brahman. So all the techniques, all the guided meditation and all the verses that we meditate upon, they focus on the highest bliss. Obviously, now we don't have an idea of what that bliss is like, because we have, even if in the previous lives, we have had the bliss of Gandharvas and all the higher beings. But still, unless they say the bliss of Brahman is realized or experienced, one is not free from misery. Even in the heavens, there is misery. Heavens will come to an end. The very fact that the time in heaven, that is what Nachiketa told his father, said, you are spending so much of time, effort, energy in doing this yajna just to go to heaven. Why do you want to go to heaven? Because anyway you have to come down when your papa or punya is exhausted. So that is also limited. That bliss you may get if you go to heavens is also temporary. So Taittiriya Upanishad slowly tells us, if you meditate on the highest immortal self, which is of the nature of pure consciousness and full of bliss within, bliss outside, even for a fraction of a second when we meditate, we slowly get a very, very brief idea. You see, you have to remember, these are not stages that we will immediately realize when we utter these verses. We have to think deeply, at least take some time out. The Upanishads are meant for that. Take one verse. When we meditate on these things or these immortal verses, even though we may understand only a fraction or experience only a fraction of what the truth says, that itself is a wonderful experience. That is what guided meditation is all about. So we'll just try to say the Gayatri mantra once again, because that is a very complete mantra. The essence of all mantras are there. So I'll just recite and try to imagine. I explained the meaning in the beginning. that is meditation on the Gayatri. Om Bhurbhuvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Paramastu. Arti.